Okay, thank you for the confirmation. So I will give an overview of what we are doing at the University of Higgins, and in particular what I'm doing at the Intelligence and Robot Laboratory Lab, Intelligent and Robot Systems Lab. And this is not a technical talk, and this is just a very brief overview. And in some part, I'm covering some of the speakers that could not join us. So to explain a little bit what we are doing, and you have an idea of our research and the university. This, because it's a new university, so it's mostly I think, unknown, in particular outside of Chile. So the University of Higgins was created in 2015 by law and opened in 2017. So we are, let's say fifth years of operation. We already have 2 campuses, one that is more than 20,000 square meter, and the other one is over 5,000 square meter, and we are continually growing. There are more than 4,000 students already, and faculty is 100 and more. And we are opening positions both for faculty and for postdocs regularly, and let's say wide and large calls. So we are hiring at a very quick, large speed. So if you are finishing your PhD or you are finishing, let's say, your postdoc, you can keep an eye and apply. We have a very strong focus on research. That is a very important focus for us. Applied research with a high impact, both high level, international level for, let's say, high level publications, and also with impact in the problems of the region and Chile. The University of Higgins is located in Chile, so you can see here the map. The red part is Chile, and we are located about 100 kilometers south from Santiago, the capital. So we are not so far from the capital. Our region is mainly focused on agriculture and mining. So we have a wide area for wine production, a fruit production of important export commodities, and also mining. So we have a very important let's say economy, and the university already has 2 campuses, one in Rancagua and one in San Fernando, and we are going to open a new campus only for engineering near Rengo in the next few years. So we will continue growing. We already have over 20 undergraduate courses, and we are going to open masters in the next, or maybe this year and next year, we will open the first master degrees. And after that, we will continue with doctor degrees. So we are growing very quickly. And as I mentioned, we have a very strong focus on high-level international research. And the Institute of Engineering Sciences that I direct has research lines on electrical and computer engineering, applied geoscience, biotechnology, experimental physics, and applied mathematics. And we work very closely with colleagues from the Institute of Agriculture, Sciences, also with health sciences, education sciences, and social sciences. So we have a very interdisciplinary approach for all our projects. In particular, agriculture, that is so important for the region, and also allows to collaborate in many interesting projects with different points of view. So before continue, I would like to mention that now we have an open call for postdoctoral positions. So the university is open this kind of position every year. We are hiring between 5 and 10 postdocs every year. And the deadline is next week. So if you are looking for a position, you can contact me or search in the web, you will find the information. Particularly, I'm looking for a researcher interested to work with me, and from the engineering point of view, in problems related to smart agriculture, robotics, remote sensing, and also in a more, let's say, algorithmic and theoretical point of view on event-based cameras. So I will present a little bit about these two problems later. But if you are looking for a position, this is a wide position, not just to work with me. So you can look into a homepage of the university and see what are the researchers doing and if there is something interesting for you to work at the university. So just a brief overview of what I have done in the past. So I am an electrical engineer. I worked in Germany for a year and a half in Fraunhofer Institute. Then I did a master in applied mathematics, in particular on vision systems and machine learning. After that, I did my doctor in Universidad de Chile, a postdoc in Japan in Kyushu University, and Kyushu Institute of Technology, sorry. After that, I did a postdoc on Advanced Minor Technology Center in Universidad de Chile. And after that, I moved again to Japan. I spent 5 years at Kyoto University working on computer vision and energy systems. And since 2018, I moved to Chile, back to Chile at Universidad O'Higgins. And since 2019, I am associate professor. And last year, I started as a director. I was appointed as a director of the Institute of Engineering Sciences, where we are working in several problems, and in particular with problems related to smart agriculture. So particularly, I work on topics related to intelligent systems and robotics. I have worked on problems related to coordination. I will mention a little bit more about this later. Computer vision and machine learning. So these are the three main topics I have addressed as a researcher, with applications in energy systems, in agriculture, and also this is something I want to do. We haven't started yet, related to smart air mining. Just a few examples of what I did before, in particular at Kyoto University. I worked on coordinated energy management systems. So that means if we have a different, in this case, you can think houses, how we can make that the houses coordinate the use of energy, the generation of energy, and the storage. So we work with protocols and models to coordinate the use of energy. And this was focused on households or at homes, but we can consider this, for example, in factories or in the field. And again, how we can model and predict, for example, solar energy, and how we can use this energy and coordinate with our, let's say, our neighbor automatically, so we don't use the energy at the same time, when we store, when we use, how much will be available. So this kind of coordination system in energy. A second work we did was related to modeling the sky. So we put a camera look into the sky, and we analyze how the clouds are moving. If you can imagine, if you take an image of the sky, it will be saturated where the sun is located. So we also model what is the illumination of the sun, and the light intensity, and we can estimate and predict how the sun will, when the clouds will cover the sun, for example, and when we will have less irradiation. We focus on that research for solar energy, but one could also say, well, maybe this is interesting for plants, for research related to plants. So basically, the idea was to model the sky using images. So we build this system, and we capture data for over 1 year in Kyoto. One more thing we did was to do tracking and detection of fish in 3D. So we have a tank of fishes, and we did tracking and detection problems in the water. So, you know, there is a reflection and refraction, and the light it's not so easy to automatically detect where the fish is and to estimate the right depth in the water. And we did this with multiple cameras. So these are some examples of the things I did in the past, not all of them. So just to give you an overview. And currently at Universidad O'Higgins, we are working in several problems. I will mention a few of them, some in collaboration with other institutions, some done by us. So the first one I want to mention, we are developing technologies for minimizing risk management in cherry production. So as you know, in cherry is very hard, not only in cherry, but cherry is important in the region. It's very hard to predict the yield. So the production that we will have from the field, and we are developing technologies for both understanding better the growth model. So we have a strong group of mathematics working with us, also for counting fruits using a vision system and for mapping. So this is a project funded by the local government, and we are working in this kind of innovation technologies for counting fruits, mapping, yield prediction, and growth modeling. So this is a project that is starting this year. And we also have a collaboration project in agriculture, so basically related to remote sensing and image processing. So this is a collaboration project with University of Paris-Saclay in France and University of la República in Uruguay. We are also working, and we hope to publish this soon, a paper related to robot technologies and business models. So this should be ready in the next month, let's say, if the paper is accepted, finally accepted. But we are working on this too. So we are interested to understand better what are the business models related to robotics in agriculture, taking some lectures from other, or some lessons from other areas, such as health, robotics in health. Finally, we have a project in collaboration with Universidad Politécnica de Valencia. So it's their project. We are collaborating with them related to robot sensing and big data in wineries. And the last one is related to a new sensor that is called event-based cameras. And we are working both in theoretical and algorithms for these sensors. And we are looking also to apply some of these technologies in smart agriculture. So I will mention a little bit about these last two, the ones that are in blue here in the slide. So robot sensing, big data in wineries, and about event-based vision. This is not, let's say, this is ongoing research, so I don't have any final result to show you, but just you can get an idea of what kind of thing we are currently doing. So the first thing I will present is a project by the Agriculture Robotics Lab of Universidad Politécnica de Valencia, so lead by Professor Francisco Rovira Mas, that we are collaborating with. So I will present a little bit about this project and what we are doing here. So the big idea here is we want to have big data in wineries. So you know, winery is very important in Chile and in many countries, and we want to help support decision making, and in particular to be able to allow the farmer to make decisions in place. Yes, not to have the data and do something 1 week or some days later. So to have the data and make the decision in place, so in the farm. And for this, we use robotic sensing. In particular, the Agriculture Robotic Lab of Polytechnic University of Valencia developed this robot, is Mind Scout. You can see here, this slide shows some other robots. So as you may know, there are many companies, and we saw some examples today and the day before, robots that are being developed for agriculture. So there is a lot of research and even products being sold already. And this robot in particular is used, as I mentioned, to give data for wineries. So you can see here, this Vine Scout robot has several sensors, cameras, LiDAR, some security sensors, and also temperature sensors. And it's designed for big data capturing in the field. And the robot moves along the field, and you can see the robot is capturing data, in this case, looking to the side. So in the left side, you can see the green points indicating where the data is being captured. So along the movement, we are capturing data. This robot uses GPS for positioning and sensor for navigation and for getting data from the field. In particular, it uses a LiDAR and ultrasonic for navigation. So we have ultrasonic sensor to know the distance from the different objects, and LiDAR also for looking in the front of the robot. It also has a hyperspectral camera that allows to measure parameters related to the content of the lift, for example. And the robot is able to capture maps. So we have accurate location of the robot, and we can get the position and some data, as you see here. So here you can see the position of the robot and the map that is being built, and also the control parameter of the robot. So after the robot has moved along the field, we can get a map, such as a map here. In this case, this is a map containing information about the temperature. So we have the temperature along the whole field. The important thing here is we have very good precision. So 1 meter by 1 meter approximately of the temperature, average temperature for those plants. So we can get a very good map, and from this map we can know something about what is going on. So one can use this kind of map for estimating how to irrigate, or even to know which grapes are good for making, let's say, very good quality wine, and what grapes are good for making good quality wine. So to separate the quality or different levels of quality using this map. So when we do after that the harvest, we can separate the quality, in this case, in two. So this kind of map is very important for that. And in particular, we get information about the vigor using the cameras and the temperature. We can also estimate parameters related to hydric stress. So we use hyperspectral camera, and we can also use a temperature sensor. And I will show some preliminary data from Portugal. So we have this field here in Portugal, and the robot moved along the field and captured data related to the temperature, as you see here. You can see the location of the robot in the top left. So this blue and red show the position of the robot. And we can also see the temperature profile of the canopy. So the leaf, what is the temperature of the leaf? And you can see temperature changes a little bit along the lines that the robot follows. And if you see data for a different time, you can also see the temperature is, let's say, oscillating. And I will not go into much detail, but what happens is that depending on what the robot is looking at, it's only moving in one direction or the opposite one, blue or red. We have some difference in the temperature. And this has to do with the temperature related to, of course, the time of day, but also if the temperature is under shadow, or if the leaf is under the shadow or not. So the shadow is very important here, and we have observed differences. So if we are going to use this data and we want to analyze it, we need to understand how it was captured, when, and also we observe we need to also consider the positioning of the sun. So when the sun is in one side, we have the sun leaf and get direct sun. Another, when the sun moves, this is changing, and when we are capturing the data with a robot that is moving and taking the data from different positions, we need to model this, understand this kind of relationship between the sun position, the robot position, and the time the data was captured. So that is something we are analyzing currently in this project. So this is shown here. So depending on the time we start capturing and the position of the robot related to the field and to the sun, we need to consider this to better understand actually what is happening with the canopy and with the orchards. So this is actually current ongoing research. So the second topic I want to mention is not directly related, as I will present here, to agriculture, but we are actually doing some things in agriculture, but I don't have any final results to show you. We already captured some data during the last summer in Chile, and we are currently analyzing it and seeing what we can do with it. We think it's very, very promising, but we need to work a little bit more. So I will actually present the introduction of one talk I did last year at face and gesture recognition conference. This is the largest national conference for face and gesture recognition. So we are working with these event-based cameras, both in face and gesture and also in agriculture. So I will give this brief overview so you can have an idea of what is this new sensor and what we are doing with it. But as I mentioned, this sensor we think is very promising also for some applications in smart agriculture. So just as an introduction, you can see here a horse running. So this is a running horse that was captured in 1878. So this is a very old set of images. Actually, this was captured by 16 cameras. 16 cameras that captured the horse running one after the other, but the basic idea is the same that we do today when we capture a video. We capture a sequence of photos, a sequence of images, and then we put them one after the other, and we can build a video. So this is, let's say, standard technology is what we are used to do today. And from a bit more technical point of view, what we are doing, we are sampling. We're taking the information at a fixed rate every, let's say, 30 milliseconds. So we are capturing one images every 30 milliseconds. So that is what we do with the standard cameras, but with events-based cameras, what we do is actually something a bit different. And the best way to understand this, I think, is we compare what we do currently with standard cameras that was shown in the left and what is shown in the right. So in the left, we are capturing the data based on a time difference. So when the time passes on a fixed set amount, 30 milliseconds, we capture data again and again and again. So that is time driven. But we can do the sampling when there is a change in the data. So once we observe a change, but by a given factor, in this case, this delta F, we can capture the data, but we don't, at this time, in this case, we will not measure the amount of change because the amount of change is fixed, is delta F. We will measure when that happens, so the time. So in one case, we measure the intensity, the F. In the other case, in time-driven data, we measure when this change happens, so the timing. So we go from measuring intensity value to timing when that value changed. So let me show you a bit more of this. So this events-based cameras follow this idea, but not for one point of data, but for images. So event-based camera asynchronously senses light intensity changes for each pixel independently. So we don't take a photo of the whole image. We take information from each pixel independently of the others, and we measure only change. This allows to have a very low latency, so we get the data at very high speed, about 1 milliseconds or microseconds. We have a very high sampling rate because of this, so there is no blur of the movement. We have a very high dynamic range, so that is something very important for agriculture. So we can see things that are very dark and very bright. And there are already 4 or 5 commercialized sensors for basically prototypes, but they work well already. And let me show you one example. So you will see here at first this video, one person playing tennis. So you see here the player hitting the ball with a standard camera. And then you will see the standard camera with the data from event-based camera overlapped. So here you see the green and red is the data coming from the base-based camera. And you can see that the data comes continuously and we get data all the time, not only when we get a frame, but all the time. So here you see only the events from the event-based camera. So we can see the movement continuously. We have much more data than in a standard camera, but only we get data when there is a change. So we don't get data for all pixels, so only for the pixels that change. So here is one more example, in this case, a face. You can see the person doesn't move much, so we can see some movement. But what is interesting here, and I will show you again, is the blinking. So the person is wearing glasses, so the eyes are very dark, but we can see the blinking of the eyes because of the high dynamic range and because of the change in the camera is measured for every pixel independently, and this measurement is done by in a logarithm scale. So it's compared, the threshold is adaptive, let's say. But the important thing here is we can see things that are very dark and we can measure the change in them. That is not easy with the standard cameras where we have to basically fix the exposure. So this is the model for this camera. I will not go much into the mathematics, but as I mentioned, what is important here is to notice that we measure every pixel independently, and we sample the change in one pixel independently of all other pixels in the image. And this is measured when the intensity change by a given factor, and that factor is measured in logarithm scale depending on the intensity of the pixel. So we get a logarithm scale, and we don't get images, as we will see more details soon. We get a train of a sequence of events. So we know the coordinates of the pixel and when the pixel changed for each pixel independently of the others. So what we get is not an image. We get, as I mentioned, a sequence. This is shown here in the middle of the slide. When we get the event representation, that this is the coordinate x, y, the polarity, the pixel intensity is growing or decreasing, and the time when this changes. And from this data, we can build an image, like is shown here in the left, but the raw data are not images, but sequences, including the coordinate and the polarity and the time of the pixel change. But we can map that to an image or to a different representation. So here you can see a hand may be moving. You will see the events encoded with red and green, depending if the pixel intensity is growing or decreasing. But we can also plot this in a continuous time, as shown in the right. And also you can study the model for this. So let's say the circuit, the equivalent circuit, and what kind of information you have. I will not go into details here. So basically what we will get is for each pixel, we will get an event here indicated in red when we have an increase by a given factor. In this case, the factor is factor C. Or when we decreases by a factor of C again, we will get the timing for that change for that pixel. So we have this train of events associated to the whole image and also to each pixel. And here you see two possible representations for this data. You see a walking person in the left, with accumulated events in an image plane, with various periods of accumulation. And in the right, you see a walking person. So I will present now a few results by other groups. So these are published results by other research groups, but I think are interesting to have an idea of what can be done. So here we will see first a drone flying. Let me move this. Let me move this a bit forward. So this is a comparison. So in the top, you can see what a standard camera will capture. So if you take a picture of this circle moving, a standard camera will get a photo every, let's say, 30 milliseconds. But the event-based camera will get something like shown in the bottom when we get this train of events. When there is no movement, there is no events, but the standard camera will continue giving these events. And when we have very high speed, like this movement, a standard camera, like shown at the top, will have blur. So, but DBS camera will not have this blur of the movement because of the high speed and sampling of each pixel independently. So this is very interesting. In particular, as you see here, when a camera moving very quickly, for example, it's a drone. So if you are using a drone that move quickly and have a lot of oscillation, you can have a much faster control of the drone because you don't have less blur in the drone. So drone is a very important application for this kind of cameras, for navigation, estimation, and other things. Sorry, let me present again. Then another example is here, and this is a paper related to estimation of movement. So we can estimate depth and other parameters in the image, and for example, do 3D reconstructions. Here is an example of 3D reconstructions of some objects in a room, but we could also do this with this kind of reconstruction with trees. So we are already working on that, try to build models of trees, three-dimensional model for a tree using this kind of technique. So we hope to have some results soon. Here you can see one more example. This is related to segmentation of movement. Let me speed up this video. Let me show you here. So yes, so you can see this event-based data. We can also identify the different objects and separate them in this events-based space. And in this way, we can estimate. Let me show you, this one is better, I think, this example here. So we can discriminate between different objects that are moving. So this could be also interesting for safety of robots moving in the field. So we have walking person or other person moving or other vehicle, we can separate them with this kind of camera very efficiently using motion segmentation in the event space. And there are different ways to represent this data. I will not go into detail. And this is a bit more technical, but this sequence of events that are located in a space, in the image plane, can be separated in different ways. Different kind of representation can be done here. You can see a list of them. And also there is very, very interesting research going on this area. Finally, I want to show you this example that is very interesting because it shows what can be done with event-based cameras and what information is available in this camera. So you can see here in the right, I will show you again, that using event-based cameras, you can reconstruct. So again, the linear images. So this image on the right is a reconstruction using event-based cameras. So using only the events, you can obtain again the actual intensity of the pixels and get very high speed videos or the equivalent. Maybe you don't want to do that. You don't want to work with the images, but this shows that you have the information there. So the events contain all the information that you will get with a standard camera, even if you get a very high speed standard camera. So you can see here the balloon blowing. So I want to show you here one specific example, this one here. So you can see on the left, you can see the events. On the right, you can see the standard camera. And in the center, you can see the reconstruction using an events-based camera. And you can see this has very high dynamic range. So in the field, you put this in a robot moving in the field, in agriculture field, there will be no saturation. So you will not have much problem with the sun being in front of the camera or behind a tree. That is a common problem when you use vision systems in outdoors. So this camera has a very high dynamic range. You can see here that shown as an example for reconstruction, but the idea is that the information is there. So if you don't do reconstruction anyway, you have the information to work with a very high dynamic range.